The former Ohio House Speaker and former Ohio GOP leader have been found guilty of racketeering. The former Speaker, Larry Householder, and former GOP leader Matt Borges were two of 5 men who were implicated in the racketeering scheme. 2 of them pled guilty to their crimes and took plea deals, and one of them took his own life.
We're here today to announce the arrest of Larry Householder, the Speaker of the House of the state of Ohio, and 4 other defendants for racketeering in relation to what is likely the largest bribery, money laundering scheme ever perpetrated against the people of the state of Ohio.
The defendants' attorneys insist that their clients' actions were just politics as usual and that they were done in the interest of bettering the community. The scheme, which is the largest public corruption trial in Ohio state history, goes back a few years to 2017. First Energy wanted money from Ohio lawmakers for 2 nuclear plants, so it routed over $60 million to a 501c4 group, which we'll talk more about later. But for now, just suffice to know that these nonprofit groups are often referred to as dark money groups because the donors aren't required to be disclosed. Most of the money was donated to a group called Generation Now, a group that was run by Larry Householder. Generation Now was used primarily to help candidates get elected to office, candidates backed by Householder. So, Householder picked the people that he wanted in office, backed their campaigns with the dark money, and then he was made House Speaker in 2019 because he had the votes. Following his election, in July 2019, the State House and Senate passed a bill that would give a $1.3 billion subsidy to fund those 2 nuclear plants that First Energy had first asked about. So you see how it all kind of comes around full circle. A year later, in July 2020, the 5 complicit men were arrested on racketeering conspiracy charges. Householder was stripped of his position at the time of the arrest, but as the midterm elections were just months away, Householder was voted back into his office. In 2021, the Ohio House expelled him again. The part that got them wasn't so much the political donations themselves, but the fact that the money was spent illegally. It was used to get certain people elected to the state Congress, and Householder himself received $500,000 that he used to pay off some debt and to repair a property that he owns in Florida. Borges, for his part, according to U.S. Attorney Kenneth L. Parker, quote, was a willing co-conspirator who paid bribe money for insider information to assist Householder. So real quick, what is a 501c4? So as I mentioned earlier, they're often referred to as dark money groups because the donors aren't required to be disclosed. So they tend to be used a lot in politics. They differ from their somewhat more popular cousin, the 501c3, in that they focus on non-commercial enterprises. In other words, they're not pushing any goods or services, but rather they're serving some kind of public interest or social welfare. In order to maintain its tax-exempt status, the group has to prove that they are working for that social welfare by way of, say, raising awareness or doing advocacy work, lobbying politicians, that kind of thing. For example, the NRA operates as a 501c4, as does your local HOA. Now, 501c4s can be set up in the interest of promoting a certain politician or political group, but technically, the nonprofit isn't supposed to be coordinating with that politician or political group directly. Technically. Also, the group itself is tax exempt, but unlike donations made to 501c3s, the donations made to 501c4s aren't tax deductible to the donor. Still, groups like the NRA don't usually have a problem taking in charitable donations in spite of this because the donors really believe in the work that the organization is doing. But long story short, these types of groups are problematic in politics for the precise reason that the donors are protected. In this case in Ohio, the First Energy contribution to the 501c4 Generation Now recorded the money as coming from a company called Company A, which made it more difficult to trace back to First Energy. With so many people pushing to get money out of politics, or at least for more transparency in politics, especially where money is concerned, these groups fly in the face of that. The concern is that while they claim to be advocating for the public good, they could be, and oftentimes are, using that donor protection stipulation to help them funnel money to specific politicians or political groups. So back to Ohio, Householder and Borges face up to 20 years in prison for their crimes, but of course we'll see what happens after any appeals are made. Also, the argument that these crimes were just politics as usual shouldn't really be an acceptable argument, even if it was applicable in this case. If this is politics as usual, it means that the political system needs some tweaking. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe to the channel and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks.